This is the Western Obsessions TV podcast, where hunting's not a hobby, it's an obsession. All right, guys, welcome back to the Western Obsessions TV podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Belding. This episode is brought to you by Ready Nutrients. Live Ready. And on this episode, I have a really cool guest. I've been watching him for a long time, man. And when you think of, I'm not going to give up who my guest is just yet. I need to talk about him a little bit. But when you think about Western hunting, this guy's like the epitome of Western hunting. Trail Kreitzer. Did I say that right? The last name?
Yeah.
All right.
Nailed
I was
it, man.
practicing it when we were talking. I was practicing the last name. I never want to butcher a last name, man. But Trail. And by the way, Trail, how cool of a first name is that? Props to mom and dad. I just had a little boy, Trail, that he's like a little over a year, almost a year and a half. And I was thinking about all the hunting names that I could name him, right? And just most of them were taken, but ended up just with his name's Taden, so it's not really a hunting name, but I really wanted to name him something hunting. So super cool name.
Sure.
But thanks for being on my podcast, man. I appreciate you. How's your day going?
Good, man. It's been good. Yeah. I mean, the weather's kind of finally turned. It's springtime in Cedar. I live here in Southern Utah, and it's been, spring's kind of the best. You know, you get a little wind, which is not my favorite, but for the most part, you get 60, 70-degree days, and it's sunny, and it's been great, man. We've had some afternoon thunderstorms the last week, which is ideal for me. I mean, if you get like a good spring morning with cool temperatures, you get out for a run, and then a nice rainy afternoon with a little bit of rain, it's perfect day. So yeah, day's going good.
Good, man. And it's been a long winter for a lot of our Western states. Here in Colorado, this is the hardest winter I've had since I've lived here, and I've lived here almost 20 years now, and it's been tough. So it's nice to get a little sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a lot of snow in Southern Utah. It didn't tend to like get down into the valley and then stick for a really long time, but we got good snow, and then the mountains just absolutely got pounded. Really kind of the worst of it was like central Utah north. You get up to that like Four Corners area, you got Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, kind of that country got just absolutely pounded, and they're seeing some issues with wildlife. But for the most part, like Southern Utah, central Southern Utah should be an absolute banner year. And all the data that I've looked at, I mean, survival looks really good for adults, and I think you're going to see real healthy fawns, and I think you're probably going to see some really good antler growth. So, in my neck of the woods, I'm super excited about this year.
Good. Yeah. That's great. We had some bad winter kill here in the northwest corner of Colorado, and you know this better than anybody, man, being in. Mm-hmm. And you know what, guys, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Let me kind of introduce Trail. If you've never met Trail, Trail is the research manager for GoHunt, which is, I think, one of the cooler hunting companies out there right now. And Trail, you've been in the wildlife forever. Before GoHunt, I think you were a wildlife biologist. Is that right? Yep, and maybe spent some time with the Utah Division of Wildlife, I think.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your backstory. And if people don't know who Trail is, you're probably living under a rock. But let me introduce you right
now. Man, you're giving me far too much credit, but I grew up in Southern Utah, born and raised, a little tiny town just over the hill from where I live now. So I live in Cedar City now, but I grew up in this little town called Anemone, which is, maybe 100, 300 people. I don't know. It's tiny. Two rooms schoolhouse. I've told this before, but I had one other kid in my class all through elementary school. So it was just me and him. So, super small town, real rural upbringing. My background's in wildlife. I in my early 20s, I started kind of thinking about professions and what I wanted to do. And my dad had worked as a park ranger for his entire career. We had a reservoir that was right across the street, Otter Creek State Park. And so he was the park manager for that. And, he kind of lobbied for me and helped me get a job as a seasonal with the Forest Service. So I worked for the biologist there at the Fish Lake National Forest, and it got me out every day. I was working, some on a trail crew. And then also when I was working for him, I was doing, goshawk surveys. I was doing habitat work, habitat treatments for him. And I just loved it, man. I loved being out every day. It kind of helped re-spark my love of the outdoors, which I'd always had, but like going through high school, sports and girls and those kinds of things were probably a higher priority at that time.
Mhm.
But then, like I said, in my early 20s, that just being outdoors, working for the Forest Service really sparked, like rekindled that interest in me. And then, I decided I was going to go to Utah State and get my degree in wildlife science. So I went up there and I did that. And each season I would come back and work for the Forest Service. And right out of college, I finished my degree. I took a job doing biological clearances. So like wildlife surveys for oil and gas development. So anytime an oil and gas company would be doing any kind of seismic exploration or anything like that, I would put together the list of like, threatened, endangered, or species of interest. And I would go out and I would do surveys and kind of document those and then work with those guys to make sure that whatever drilling operation they were doing, that we kind of mitigated the impact to wildlife. So I did that for about 3 years. And I applied for a job with the Utah Division of Wildlife as a habitat biologist, and I got that job, and I did that for a number of years, and then eventually kind of worked up into the assistant habitat manager in the southern region. But yeah, I was doing habitat restoration work mostly, working with the Forest Service and the BLM to try to do as much as we could for wildlife and for habitat, and then eventually like my real love, I guess you could say, was just like in hunting. And I love to hunt. I love everything about it. I love the adventure in it, the planning, the prep, the gear, the maps, everything, hunting and just the adventure of it. And that was kind of really what I was living for. I was saving up all my annual leave, all my comp time, all my sick leave, everything I could to put together time to get out in the field and get hunting in the fall. And I was kind of freelance writing for GoHunt when they were getting started. They started back in 2013, and I was kind of doing some stuff on the side for them just to make a little extra money. And when the opportunity came available to go to work for those guys and essentially like give me more opportunity to work within the industry, but then like the big one was just more time to put into it each fall.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's tough building the comp and then the money. It's expensive to go hunting, even if you are doing DIY too. And let me back up a little bit. And obviously, you guys can see that Trail's been in wildlife forever. Let's go back to the small town you grew up in. I grew up in a small town also, in a little small town, Nebraska. My class was 36 people. Your class was 2.
in elementary, I got to high school, so they bust all these kids in from these small communities and they would all go to the same high school. So I think my graduating class was like 43, I want to say.
Yeah.
So it's slightly bigger than yours, but we had kids that lived in towns that they would get picked up in the dark to go to school, and they would get home in the dark because it was just so far out, in transit. So it's small communities.
Yeah, I love growing up in a small community. Obviously, like as I hit teenagers years, early 20s, I wanted to get the heck away and find a near a city and do that. And school and sports and girls took priority for me too. But there's something really to be said about a small community like that, like the type of values that you have and work ethic and did you, so like in southern Utah, like did you grow up with mountains around you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I grew up in the flats of Nebraska and whitetail hunting, turkey hunting. So I didn't get the mountain aspect of it, but I was always drawn to that type of outdoors, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely something to said about small town living for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that little town of Antimony, it sits right in the middle of, 3 or 4 mountain ranges. And if you're familiar with applying for elk in the state of Utah, you've heard the word Monroe, the Monroe unit, the Beaver unit, the Dutton unit, the Boulder unit. Those 4 units are all just right there, and Antimony kind of sits right in the heart of them. So like I had the Dutton right out my back door. I've got pictures of me as a little kid sitting on a picnic table in the backyard with some elk in the yard, grazing. And we used to sit every day on the back porch with the binoculars, and we would look at the big sagebrush hill out the back door and just count deer in the winters. They would come down, migrate, and winter right there in those big sagebrush flats behind the house. And another thing, just as you were talking, I don't know, I talk a lot, so I'm sorry, but
Oh, I like it.
One of the great things I used to remember as a kid was back when I was growing up, you could just buy a general season deer tag over the counter, and we would get this giant influx of people from, a lot of them from Nevada, from Las Vegas or from Southern California. And they would come up, and since we lived essentially right across the street from a state park, that whole park would be completely full of people that had booked a spot to stay and camp. And then they would go out, hunting all day. So, I mean, that park would just be absolutely crammed full with people hunting. And I would get on my bike, in the afternoon when I get home from school during the deer hunt. I would just ride across over to the park, and I would make laps through that park, just looking at all the different deer that were hanging, just to see what had come in. So that was like a cool memory. Like I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. For us at that age, we had check-in stations in Nebraska where you
Mhm.
had to check your animal in, and we would drive around to the check-in stations and check out the animals that were being harvested. That's
Yeah.
I always thought that was super exciting for me as a kid. I don't know, I was a weird kid, but I thought it was super exciting to do it. How did I love asking this question, and a lot of times the answer is very similar, but how'd you get into hunting? What was your first experiences there?
Mhm. Yeah, it was a family tradition. My dad is originally from Indiana. He moved out when he was in his 20s, he and my mom, and really the draw for him to the Mountain West was for hunting in the outdoors and mountains. And growing up in that environment in a real rural community, hunting, I think, was just like, it was part of the culture. And I mean, I've said this before, but hunter education for me was part of it was my seventh period of school. Every kid went to hunter's ed, and they had a game and fish officer. He came and taught the class. Everybody went through the course. So like when I was in high school, everybody that went through Paiute High got hunter's ed, and it was just part of the deal. You just did it. Um, in high school, they had a deer hunters ball every year, and it was a dance. All the high school kids went, a lot of the community would come down. They would go to the deer hunters ball, and they
Yeah.
would do raffles and give away guns. And I mean, it was really just like part of the culture that was kind of ingrained in the communities that I grew up in. And then, my dad, I would say he was probably the biggest catalyst that introduced me to it. I remember going out on family deer hunts. I had three older brothers that hunted, and every October, we would go out and we would go deer hunting. And I remember a lot of times, going out and just trudging through the snow and hand-me-down shoes and makeshift clothes, and just looking for deer and hoping we'd get a crack at a buck. But I would say that was probably like my first introduction, was just out hunting mule deer with my dad and my brothers.
Yeah. That's fantastic, especially growing up in that type of culture. That's unheard of in a lot of places. And I do hear whisperings here in Denver, even as having hunter safety courses in the high school, which I think, or not high school, maybe middle school, maybe high school. I don't remember. But anyway, I thought that was very cool because you don't think about that in bigger cities like Denver. So I thought that was very nice. But yeah, kind of traditional story of family, culture, and now fast forwarding today, you work for GoHunt as the research manager. And here's what I really like about GoHunt, man. You guys are always putting out really good content. Like I don't even know how you do it so much. Like there's so much content, so much good content. I really enjoy that. Tell me about your experience with GoHunt.
Yeah. So like I said, I started with them. It was kind of at a time frame when they were looking at opening up the Go Hunt gear shop when I came on with them full time. And they were really kind of looking for somebody that could write and do, the research for like the application strategy articles that we put out each year for each state and each species. And then also somebody that was kind of a gear junkie. And then it also had a bunch of time in the field, trying gear and hunting. And I think it was kind of the pivot point for them where they thought they could bring me in full time. And so I came on. I think my official title right now, I've kind of had some different roles. I kind of started in that role as like a research role for writing application strategy articles, and then picking gear for the gear shop. And then as customer service became more of a demand, I did a lot of customer service. And then just kind of naturally, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I'm that good on camera, and I don't think I'm like that good of a personality, to be honest. I don't think I wouldn't, I guarantee you I will go back and listen to this at some point and be like, man, I'm just kind of a bumbling idiot. You know, I don't feel like I put myself out there real well with the way I speak, but it kind of transitioned somehow into me doing, more content, whether video, social media, or podcasting. And that's kind of what I do right now. My role's kind of actually split. I spend a lot of the spring, mostly like December through May, writing those application strategy articles and doing a bunch of research, and really trying to put the best information that I can out there for people so that they know where to apply and how to apply, and all the pertinent information that you need to know to kind of navigate the states in the West. And then just like doing content. So, podcast, video, all that stuff. So I got
Yeah.
a frog in my throat.
And like I said before, you guys put out so much content at scale, and it's such great content. You guys are a really good resource for anybody that either I would say not an expert hunter, but like, knows what's going on. There's great content for that. There's also really good content for novice hunters too, that are just getting into the industry. My thought here goes to like, sorry, I'm having a little bit of a brain fart myself. I've never had this in a podcast. This is new for me.
You haven't? I have it all the time. Welcome to my world.
Welcome to your world, right?
Yeah, I typically call it early set Alzheimer's. That's what I've got.
Yeah.
I think.
So like that's what I'm really interested in. One is the scale of content that you guys put out. How do you do that? Two is I really enjoy the branding and how you guys have branded GoHunt, and you're a big part of that. And what I mean by that, I'm in marketing. I love branding. I love that whole business side stuff. And you guys have really used your employees actually really well to brand your company. So your employees are on, and you guys are fun and always doing something really fun. But tell me about that. Tell me about the scale of content. How do you produce so much content? And kind of like how that branding goes and what you guys do for that, like on a day.
I would say from a company standpoint, I mean, we have a hunting culture within the company. I would say almost everybody hunts or is new to hunting and wants to get into hunting. And then, you got Lorenzo, who owns the place and really started GoHunt. That guy's is diehard a hunter as anybody I know. So I think from just a company culture, we all love to hunt. Like we genuinely really like to hunt. And then I think that's kind of like I use the word catalyst, but that really is kind of like the jump off of the catalyst for, content generation, and then, company culture, being kind of wrapped around, hunting and really kind of keeping that at the forefront. And then, as far as like how we put out content, a lot of it is just, it's brainstorming. It's guys like, Brady or me or Chris Neville, sitting around and talking about the things that we would like to see, that we would watch, that we would be interested in, kind of generating ideas, based on hunts that we've done. And then the other, probably the part of that is we try to look at it from a standpoint of, what can we do with the experience that we've got from hunting to help pass that on and like help educate people, help them be more successful, or even just like get them started in hunting. And I would say that those are probably the two driving, motors for generating content. One, either it's something entertaining or inspiring, something that we would want to see and watch ourselves. Maybe we want to answer a question ourselves, so we go out and kind of explore that. Or, what can we do to help people navigate the process? Because it is I'm sure you're well aware. You're from Colorado, and if you apply across the West and you look at the various states, every state does things differently. It's really hard to navigate it, especially if you're just getting into hunting. I had a conversation the other day with a gentleman, and he's kind of an adult onset hunter, I guess is the word that they're using. But I was talking to him, and it would be really hard, I think, as an adult, to try to get into hunting at a later stage in life. Not only just navigating the process of like getting a tag, but then just all the little tips and tricks and gear and the things that you need to actually find some success. And I think if people are going to stay in hunting, which I want them to, I think it's good for the sport as a whole and for the tradition. You know, they've got to find some success. You know, you can't just continually go out there year after year and get your butt handed to you and think that you're going to keep coming back. So, you know, those types of that type of content that we can help people, you know, shorten the curve, maybe help them find some success so that we, you know, get a hook in them, if you will, not for GoHunt, but for hunting in general.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I mean, we're kind of a small team as far as like content goes, but we spend a lot of time just brainstorming and talking about things that we're interested in. And, you know, we're also pulling from a lot of experience. I mean, I've hunted my whole life. I'm in my 40s now at this point. You know, I love to bow hunt, and I'm kind of a geek about archery and bow hunting. So that's kind of my thing. Brady genuinely really loves rifles and shooting, and he puts a lot of time and effort into reloading and dialing in his rifles. And so that's kind of like his level of expertise. And he's been hunting for his whole life. And, you know, we've got some young guys. Chris Neville's a little bit younger than both of us, but that guy absolutely loves to hunt. And, you know, he's been doing it for a long time. So we've got some experience that we can pull from as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And you guys do a great job again, like I said, with the content. Going back to something you had brought up about adult onset hunters, right? It seems to be a pretty good influx of that now in the industry, which is fantastic. I think any new hunter is amazing, is great. And something that I've noticed too is I grew up hunting, but I didn't grow up Western hunting. I didn't start that until in my late 20s. And it was difficult because I go from whitetail hunting, sitting in a tree stand in a creek line somewhere, to like, okay, now I got to find an elk on thousands and thousands of acres in the mountain. It was very difficult for me to like that learning curve. So I've started something called a hunt mentor that I'm putting together right now to like help mentor that just exactly what we're talking about. People that want to go hunting, but don't want to spend 10 years to figure it out. So yeah, and you guys are doing an amazing job of getting that information out there. And I think what it does for your company, and on the business side, I love to geek out about business too. On the business side, you guys are becoming the resource for people. And when you're the information hub, that means the attention is on GoHunt, and then you guys can do whatever you want and make a good business out of it from there, right? The attention comes first, and then the business comes after. I mean, point taken with now you've got GoHunt, the map system, you've got the point tracker, you've got obviously that research, that 2.0 tool is amazing. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go to gohunt.com, check out their website. Great stuff that they're developing there. What else do you think would be super important that you guys are doing for someone learning more?
Yeah. I would say that we kind of look at it as an ecosystem for hunters, if you will. So what we're trying to do is give people the tools that they need to know where to apply, how to get a permit, whether it's an application and a draw, or pick a permit over the counter, and then provide maps for them to help them e-scout, know where they can go, how to get there, and then also the mobile version of the maps to help them navigate in the field. And then also the gear shop. So we hand select the gear that we carry in the gear shop. Our approach to a gear shop is we don't want to carry everything under the sun. We want to really carry brands and products that we like and use, that we've field tested, and that we feel good about recommending to people. And then, the content side of that as well, to like help people know how to navigate all this from start to finish. As far as like the actual research platform itself that you noted, draw odds is huge, because every state in the West has a lottery, if you will, that you have to apply in to then draw a permit. So knowing how to apply and knowing what a draw odd is, you get into a whole discussion about preference points and bonus points and what those are. So we try to outline and give people an understanding of how those systems work, and then how to use draw odds to help them apply and draw permits. So that's a big part of it. The filtering 2.0 is essentially, it's a filter. You can put in your hunt dates. You can filter by season. You can filter by trophy potential. You can filter by harvest success. You can filter by, buck to doe ratios, all these different filters that you can use when you're researching a species in a state to really help you fine tune the hunt that you're looking for. So if you're primarily a bow hunter, you can throw on the archery select season option within that filtering 2.0. It's going to show you all the archery options, and then you can use the rest of the filters to really fine tune and help you find a unit to apply for at a hunt. And draw odds is also built into that filtering 2.0. So, you have essentially a one-stop shop that can help do all your research. Those are super important. I would say, I talk about them a lot because I write them, are these application strategy articles. I spend a ton of time on those articles. I've added it up before actually, but usually from like a December to a May time frame, I'm typically like 350 to 400 written pages of text and graphs, which I've pulled from state biology reports or from talking to guides and outfitters or to other hunters, and looking at harvest statistics and draw trends and all that information. I'm kind of pulling and putting that together, and I'm putting that into these application research articles. That's going to give you things like populations, buck to doe ratios, kind of the hit list, like the best units in the state, winter kill information. We try to offer all the, the precip and any kind of weather related information that might help you with your application. But we put a ton of time into those. And I actually think if it were me and I was recommending somebody that just got a GoHunt Insider membership, if they're considering applying for a state and a species, that would probably be one of the first places I would send them, because within that first 2 pages, you're going to really understand the dates that you need to apply and the intricacies of that draw system and how it works.
Yeah.
So
it's literally a one-stop shop. It's by far the best tool that I use to research hunting is GoHunt. And you literally could do, just like you're saying, everything. Like if you've never even applied to a state, you can go there and learn how to apply to state. You can learn about the preference points. For me, I use a lot. Like I've planned hunts 100% on GoHunt. I've said, okay, I've got these many points in this state. What does this say about these units? What am I looking for? And I use the filtering tool. I'll read the articles. I'll literally, use the maps as in my e-scouting, and I don't even need to step foot in that state before, and I'm already ready to go. Obviously, once you get there, you get boots on the ground. Sometimes things change, and it's a little bit different, but I don't need to go and drive to another state and scout. I can do pretty much everything off of GoHunt, which has made my life a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, you can. It's a robust ecosystem, like I said, and that's kind of the goal of it when they started out, was to make it a platform that can really help you, take you all the way from planning and preparation all the way through your hunt, and provide the means to get a tag, the means to navigate when you get into the field, know where to go through all the different tools and features that are built within GoHunt Maps. GoHunt Maps it's progressed so much just in the last couple of years. I was talking to Brady earlier today. He's working on some content, and he was talking about using elevation bands, which is a tool built within GoHunt Maps where you can essentially color code your maps based on the elevation range that you want to look at. And then you can also highlight a slope aspect, or, the degree of the slope. And, through just those 3 things, pretty quickly, depending on the hunt you have, you can pick out areas to really start to fine tune and key in on your research. So there's all these little tools and layers built within GoHunt Maps that can really, the learning curve is so much shorter than it was when I was a kid.
Man, so much shorter. I remember going hunting, and I used the Google Earth on my phone to help navigate me around. And like the guys I was hunting with were like, "What is that? What are you doing?" Oh my God, that's a game changer. Like you're revolutionizing the industry. And now we've got like GoHunt Maps, we got all these tools. Definitely makes hunting a lot easier. And what I really like about it is, like, I'm not afraid to go deep into the woods somewhere, in the mountains somewhere. I'm not afraid to go to other states. It's really opened up possibilities of hunting for me and anybody else that wants to do that,
Yeah. The barrier of entry is much lower than it was, when we were growing up. It is interesting to me. I mean, I still hear people say that, 90%, or 10% of the people, the hunters are still going to kill 90% of the game, even with all the tools and tricks that we have.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's totally, as true as it might have been once upon a time, but I mean, all the tools are there and they all exist. You got to dig in, do the research and like put them to use.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's still hunting.
maybe it's 15% now, but you
Maybe.
still got to like put in the work.
Mhm.
So, all right, man. Obviously, we definitely hammered on GoHunt because I believe and I love the company, man. I think you guys are doing amazing stuff. But Trail is more than just GoHunt. So let's get into what Trail's life is like, man. So you have a wife, you have 3 boys, is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's your boys' names?
Yeah, my oldest boy will turn 18 actually this June. So he'll be 18 in June. His name is Landon. My middle child, my middle boy is 13. His name's Colin. And then my youngest is 10 and his name's Owen.
Very cool, man.
So yeah, they're all kind of spread out a little bit, but yeah, three boys, which keeps me hopping.
Oh yeah. Does everybody hunt in your family?
Yeah, my oldest boy definitely hunts, but it's really interesting. Like you have kids and you look at your kids and you think, oh, I see things in him that are like me. And I see things in my middle child that are more like me. And even my younger one, but my older one is a lot like me. And right now, like his major focus is basketball. It's all he wants to do is play basketball. And, like he's either in a weight room or a gym and just absolutely loves it. And he loves to hunt, but it's kind of a secondary for him at this point.
Yeah.
And it's not going to shock me at all if, he progresses through graduation and then into college years. And then as he starts to, get into his adult life, if he, doesn't look back on it and go, yeah, I really missed that challenge and that opportunity to go hunting. So he hunts for sure. My middle kid is not as interested, which is okay. I still, try to get him out, but he's not quite sure if he wants to pursue it. I think he will eventually. It's interesting. Of my 3 boys, I think he probably has the potential to be one of the best hunters of the 3 of them because he's super patient. He's very observant. He's very self-aware. And I think he's got kind of a unique skill set that's probably unique among the 3 of them that would make him, in my opinion, I think he would probably be an excellent hunter, but he's not quite sure if he wants to do it or not. And then my youngest boy, I just finished hunter's education with him, and he's diehard. He wants to go so bad.
That's
Yep.
great. I've got a 13-year-old daughter that's been my hunting buddy for the last few years, but she's getting into that stage right now where like, man, I don't think I want to go with you this year.
Mm.
I don't know. I want to hang out with my friends and and I love to like that kind of that backpacking, harder Western style hunt. And I don't know, like I'm a little leery to like push her to that because I don't know if she
Mm-hmm.
would enjoy it the way I would enjoy it. Right. So it's a little bit sad to see their interest fall, but I'm with you where I bet you that comes back around later in the years, just like it did for me and you.
Yeah. Her time will come. I think, I don't know. I just think it's the progression. And I look back on my life and, yeah, you have different stages of your life. And I think they'll come back to it.
I think so. Yeah. What about your
But
wife?
not, right? My wife is, she's interested, like she'll go hunting. It was interesting. She actually hadn't had hunter's education, until my oldest boy needed to go through hunter education. And I told her at the time, I said, hey, Lennon's got to go through hunter's ed. Why don't you just jump in and go with him and you'll both get it done. You'll both do it. And if you want to hunt, great. If you don't, no biggie. So they both did hunter education together. And then that first year I applied her for an elk tag in Utah. And, I absolutely did not think she would draw at all. I mean, nobody draws with 0 points, right? But she drew probably one of the most coveted units in the state her very first year. And she went out, we hunted 3 days. It was in November. It was a late rifle hunt and she killed a 340 bull, killed a great bull.
Dang,
And, had a good experience and I was really excited about it. And I think the next year I applied her for just a general season deer tag and took her out. And she ended up scoping herself really, really good. Uh, yeah, on a little mule deer buck. And that hunt was entirely different from the elk hunt in that, the elk hunt, we didn't see a soul for 4 days because it's a limited entry elk hunt late season. We hunted a part of the unit that, traditionally doesn't get a ton of pressure, versus a general season deer hunt where there's people everywhere. There's a lot of pressure. There's animals moving. There's more of a competitive, feel to it, if you will, when you're in the field.
Yeah.
And she was not into that like she was the elk hunt. So she hasn't hunted since. She's not opposed to it by any means, and I still apply her for good tags. I typically take like a swing for the fences approach with her applications, but yeah, she's kind of in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, I don't blame her. I'm not a big fan of pumpkin patch hunting either. I call
Yeah.
it pumpkin patch, right? Because there's orange everywhere. I would rather be, and I'd rather not see any animal, but not see any other humans, and I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
I love being alone on a mountain. I don't like that competitive feel with a gun or a bow on a mountain. It's not, I don't like, my competitiveness is in sports and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most people are probably that way too.
Yep.
My wife is not into hunting. She likes to fish, so I'll take her fishing, but hunting she's not really, she doesn't care about. She definitely doesn't want to do like the backpacking hunting thing. So it actually plays to my advantage. So now we're not competing with like who's watching the kids, who's going hunting kind of thing. So that's really nice too. Yeah. So I got a good question for you, Trail. Tell me about, I mean, obviously, I mean, you've hunted lots of years here, but what would you say was like the worst hunt you've ever been on? Everyone wants, and I want to know about your best hunt, but like first I want to hear about your worst hunt.
Worst hunt I've ever been on.
Spot, huh?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I don't know that I've ever really had a bad hunt, in the sense that like when I came back from it, I just absolutely hated it. Uh, Even hunts where I've eaten tags, and I've eaten some tags, I've come back home and I've been pretty grateful for the experience. And typically what happens for me is I get home from a hunt, whether I've tagged out or not, and whether it's been, quote unquote good hunt or maybe one that didn't quite live up to my expectations. I come home and I get those first few days in front of my computer, and whether it was a good hunt or a bad hunt, like I just want to be back out there.
Yeah.
So I've had some really tough hunts, and I've had some situations that maybe didn't live up to my expectations. I would say probably the worst hunts I've had have been the type of hunt that you're talking about, like a high pressure, late rifle hunt. It's just over the years, I've kind of learned that maybe it's either maybe I'm not the best rifle hunter, or it's just, the hunts that I typically don't enjoy as much because there is so much pressure. And a lot of it seems to be, like who is the closest guy to that animal when they see it. And I would say that the hunts that I'm thinking of have been, second or third season rifle tags in Colorado. And I've been on a couple of those where I've been at my glassing point before light. It gets light. I've glassed up a good buck and I'm throwing all my gear in my pack, and I've watched that buck get shot.
Yeah.
And it's not that that's a bad hunt per se, or even a bad experience. It's just it's frustrating,
Yeah, it is frustrating, and especially if the time and energy you spent on that hunt, and there's nothing we can do about it. And it's not like we don't want people to hunt. We just don't want people to hunt in our spots.
Yeah, the thing is like I could have been that guy. That day I could have been the guy that was in that location when that buck was where it was, and I would have shot that buck, and I probably would have had a great hunt. But I've had multiple hunts I can think of that are, those late season rifle hunts where it just feels like I can't outwork anybody. And I like those types of hunts. Those are the types of hunts that I seem to excel at and I do pretty good. is like I can outwork people. Like I can go farther, I can stay longer. And some of those, it felt like the pressure was so high, and the deer, because of weather and whatnot, were so concentrated. It just felt like it was kind of a luck of the draw. It was like who was closest to that animal on that day. And I felt frustrated in the sense that I didn't feel like I could work as hard as I want and get the success because of it.
Right. And I will say, and I hunt a lot in Colorado, and last few years, Colorado's definitely been hammered with like over the counter hunts for sure. But I think people are going deeper and further now than they
Mhm.
used to. Because I can get in there super deep and thinking that I'm alone, and come to find out I am not alone. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people around me, So I think it's definitely evolved with all the technology now, and education that people have is it's
Mhm.
definitely evolved where we run into that situation here time and time again, and it's okay. It's all right. I'd
Yeah.
rather be doing that than anything else anyway. So
Yep.
now, flip side, do you have a
Mm.
hunt in mind that you like is one of your favorites?
Um, yeah, I do. And I've got a lot of them. It, I don't want to say that like one is clear and above and beyond, my very favorite, because I've got multiple hunts that are my favorite for different reasons. And maybe I'll just mention a couple, but I went on an Alaskan moose hunt with a friend. It was a guy that I'd met at the Western Big Game, or the Western Hunting Expo in Salt Lake, and he and I just kind of exchanged information over a couple years and put together a hunt and went up and hunted moose for 10 days. And that was one of my favorite for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons was just a completely new environment, and hunting a new species that I didn't actually think I would ever hunt in my lifetime. I really didn't. I just didn't know that I would ever have, the financial means to go on a hunt like that. And, this one wasn't that expensive because we did it all ourselves. I mean, everything we did our own. And so it was actually relatively cheap, and I was able to afford it. But um, just to see those animals, I mean, just unbelievable size of those things was incredible. And just to like interact and see them, I the very first day I'll never forget, we kind of, docked, pulled up on the shore in the boat that we had, and we hiked up a ridge. We got to the top of the ridge and we glassed up this big bull moose that was bedded in a saddle. And he would lay his antler over and one palm down, and he was kind of taking a mid-afternoon siesta. And I made a loop on him, and I stalked up on him, and I crawled in. There was tall grass, and I crawled into 40 yards of that bull, with my bow in my hand. And there's just this giant paddle sticking up out of the grass as he would lay over his head. And I fell in love with the idea of like crawling up and getting as close as I possibly could to shoot this bull with my bow. And anytime he would lay that antler over, I would crawl in and I would crawl in. And that bull actually ended up getting spooked. I was within range. I could have shot that bull for an hour, and I
Right.
didn't, just because I was like, oh, I want to be 5 yards or 10 yards, And he ended up getting spooked by a big grizzly bear that actually came up and over and down the ridge, and I didn't get a shot at him. He turned and ran dead away from me. And that entire experience though has like lived with me ever since. I absolutely love that experience, just even though I didn't kill that bull. But that entire hunt, I mean, just the adventure in it was incredible. And I think for me, a lot of the draw for hunting is the adventure. It's just that like wild, what could happen today. And I love that adventure. I'm lost here, but I'm going to tell you one more, and this is probably my like my true favorite, probably like the most visceral, like vivid memories that I have as a hunt is I drew an elk tag in New Mexico, and it was a wilderness area. I went down solo, completely by myself, no cameraman, just me. And I like to hunt that way. I'm typically kind of a loner. I mean, day to day, I spend a lot of time by myself. I'm kind of a socially awkward guy anyway. And so I spend a lot of time on my own, and I'm one of those guys that I don't mind, days and days on end without, talking or seeing anybody else. So I went on this hunt. It was a backpack elk hunt, and I went by myself, and it took me probably 9 days, I think, to really find and figure out the kind of the movements and where I was getting into elk every day. And, throughout those 9 days, it had snowed on me. It was super cold. I was hunting at 11,000 feet and I was living off my back with a backpack. And so, everything is on your back. You're moving miles every day trying to figure this hunt out. And I think it was the ninth day I got onto this herd of elk right first thing in the morning. And I trailed these things for probably 3.5, 4 miles. And I remember very vividly, there were multiple times when I would just like, I'm not going to catch these elk. I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I following these elk? Like I can hear them and they're just continually getting farther and farther and farther. And it's a herd bull and he's got some satellites and he's got a big harem of cows. And I just kept thinking like, this is kind of pointless. Like this is never going to happen. But like, for whatever reason, I just kept going and I kept going. And I finally kind of started to cut the distance as they were moving towards a bedding area, like mid-afternoon. And I remember I kind of slipped in and this herd bull ran off a satellite bull and I cow called a couple of times. And I think he must have thought that he had a couple of cows that had like held back, that were, out of the harem. And he came trotting out and he trotted out. I was in a burn area and he bugled once at like 60 yards. And then he just kind of turned and he walked in, totally broadside at 45 yards. And he stood there and bugled. And then he kind of turned his head away from me and I drew and I shot him and he, went down the hill and he died maybe 100 yards. But I remember when I finally found that bull, just like this overwhelming just flood of emotions, just like relief, like I'd finally done this thing that seemed so impossible and I'd worked so hard at it for so many days. I essentially had no food left. I think I had one mountain house left and I had a pack of like energy chews in my backpack. And that was it. Like I was down to just absolutely nothing. And I think when I look back on all the different hunts that I've done, that's like one moment that I always go back to is just like, man, I did something special, and it meant a lot to me that I put that much work and that much effort into it and that it worked out. And the other thing is I didn't see a single person for 10 days. So I was 10 days completely solo on my own, not another person. So
that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
I think hearing you talk, man, I'm very similar to you in the fact that I love the adventure. That's the experience for me, is the adventure. I love going solo hunting. Just being and not trying. I do a lot of self-filming and stuff for my show. And when I can get out there and not film it and just immerse myself into the wilderness, I just absolutely love it. But
Yeah.
how far back were you during that time? Because you've been like following the elk for a long time. Were you like miles and miles?
Yeah, I think I killed that bull. I was I want to say like 11 miles as the crow flies.
Holy
From
cow.
Yeah, and there's a whole other part of this story. I had a packer lined up to come in and help me pack it out.
Yeah.
And I had an inReach device. So he didn't have an inReach device. So what I would do is I would inReach my wife. My wife would then call him on the phone and tell him, the directions is on how to find me. And so I killed that bull. I got him all quartered, taken care of mid-afternoon. And then I had messaged her. She'd messaged me back, said, yeah, excuse me, he's good to go. He'll be there tomorrow. And he had clear directions on where I was. And so the next day came and I waited the whole day and he never showed. And that night I texted her back and I said, have you heard from him? And it was late. It was like 11 o'clock. And she said, yeah, I just got a message, or I just talked to him. And he said that he'd gone up there and he'd rode all day and wasn't able to find you. And I was like, well, I haven't moved. I'm right here. I'm still with the bull. If he has a GPS unit, like there's no way he could have missed me. I'm literally right here with the elk. And she said, okay, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, well, call him back and see if he'll come back tomorrow. And I will just hike out tonight and I will hike out to the trailhead and I'll meet him at the trailhead. And so that's what I did. And I think I started out of there. It was late. It was, like I said, it was like 11 o'clock, when I started hiking, and it was an absolute downpour. Like I've never been so drenched in my whole life. And I hiked the entire length of the night, into the early morning hours to hit that trailhead. I remember being so cold and just so hungry because I'd ran out of food.
Yeah.
I remember I stripped off all my clothes and just threw it there in the back of the truck. And I jumped in the truck and just cranked the heater. And I sat there and ate pretty much everything I had left in the truck. And, this guy did roll up and meet me finally. I got a, fresh change of clothes. And then he and I rode in together. And it took us most of the day to get in on horseback and get that elk out, but we did get it out. But I mean, I think it's like, it's kind of overused maybe, but it's that type 2 fun, And I think that's the thing that makes it the best. It's just when you put that much work and that much effort and then it does work out, there's really no better feeling than that. When, you finally get everything back to the truck and you're headed back home and, you've got antlers in the back of your truck and you look at them in your rear view. There's nothing like that feeling.
Nothing like it, man. And as I'm listening to you talk about the hike and the rain and, how far it was, like, I'm like, oh man, that sucks. But at the same time, I'm like, yes. I like
Yeah.
I like just really love that type of suffer for some reason. I just really enjoy it. If you put two animals and one's 100 yards away and the other one's 3 miles away and it's the exact same animal, I'm always going after the one 3 miles away. I don't know why. I just love that challenge, and it's just a sweeter victory. So just who I am, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah. What do you have? Tell me. I'm all immersed in that story now, man. That's a great story. But tell me about if you had to go on, like, what's your dream hunt? Like, what, no money aside, because there's some hunts that are like super expensive, but for me, I'm like, man, I don't really care about it. It's not even the money. It's not that big a deal to me. But what's your dream hunt, man? No money involved.
I would say it's actually a harder question than you might think for me.
Sure.
And it's because I don't necessarily, I don't like covet, I don't covet animals, per se. Like I mean, my bread and butter, this is genuinely the truth. I could hunt deer, elk, and antelope every year or combination, every few year, and be really happy because I really do. I love those animals and I love their antlers. I love antelope hunting. I think they're one of the most special species in the West. I mean, they're just a gorgeous animal. They're a really neat animal to hunt. So I love hunting them. And really, when I look at my hunting schedule every year, those are like the ones that I want to put in my pocket. Uh, I love Alaska. I mean, I've done caribou, I've done moose. I've never had the opportunity to hunt a sheep species, but I don't really necessarily feel like I've been bitten by the sheep bug per se. I would love to get a chance to hunt Dall sheep, but I don't think it's such a high priority to me that I would ever, spend the kind of money that it would take to go on a guided hunt in Alaska. I just don't value it at that level. As I'm talking though, and as I was running the other morning, I got to thinking about it, and I think I would really like to do, like New Zealand,
Yeah.
New Zealand tar hunt,
A tar hunt.
and
Yeah.
yeah, tar. Yeah, I think that would be incredible, and a lot of it is just because the scenery is so incredible.
Yeah.
An absolute adventure, the travel involved to get there, and just the ruggedness of that terrain. And then I just think they're a really cool, unique animal. So I'm gonna say right now, as of today, it could change in a week, but I'm gonna say today, just since I was running the other day and thinking about it, I would really like to do a New Zealand tar hunt.
Yeah. I think that would be fantastic. I don't know a lot about tar, but I do know like the terrain that they live in, and it's definitely rugged. But yeah, but I think New Zealand would be fantastic. But I'm kind of the same way. Like I have not been bit by the sheep bug. I don't have the capabilities to drop that kind of coin on a hunt
Yeah.
anyway. If it got put in my lap and I was able to go, sure, absolutely, I'm going.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy the more rugged hunts, like the archery elk hunt. I'm going on my first caribou hunt this year on Attic
Cool.
Island in Alaska, and I'm very excited about that. That caribou is on the top of my list just because it's a cool animal in Alaska. Never hunted Alaska before. It's my first time, and I'm not even mainland. I'm out on an island. So,
Hmm.
but stuff like that really gets my blood pumping, you know. So
I'll tell you one that's kind of recently bit me is the Aoudad Barbary sheep.
yeah, Barbary sheep.
And yeah, I drew a tag in New Mexico in January, and I went down on that hunt, and I spent 6 days, and I ended up killing a ewe. I looked at a ton of sheep. I saw some rams, but nothing that was, a good representation. It just wasn't like a big mature ram. And then recently we had the opportunity, we went to Texas, and that was on a, it was a private land chunk, and with a guy that had, I don't know if it was a lease or if he had a guiding outfit on it, but it was a backpack hunt. So we backpacked all of our water in and everything. It was a full backpack hunt. But I mean, they're so cool.
Yeah,
Honestly, they're so dang cool. Those sheep,
I think
those
they're the
Barbary sheep.
ugliest, coolest looking animal.
Yeah.
They're ugly as heck, but they're super cool, and they live in the nastiest terrains.
Nasty terrain. I mean, nasty. Everything has thorns. I mean, the cactus, it's hotter than hell. And, they don't really need water. I mean,
Yeah,
they'll water, but they're a desert dwelling animal, and just so rocky, so rough. And then I mean, their horns are, I think their horns are cool. And then they've got the chaps and the beard. I just think they're such a striking animal. And I've kind of fallen in love with those recently. I just think they're really cool.
yeah. I've been to Mexico a couple times hunting Aoudad, and I shot one this last year.
Cool.
And it was on, I was in Mexico, so I definitely was with a guide, but
Mhm.
it was a hard hunt, physically very
Mhm.
hard hunt, and I enjoyed that a lot. And rocky, you're right, like everything's trying to poke you and everything's trying to stab you, and but I really enjoyed it, man. So I want to get down to Texas and do some in-state dad hunting. So this is be something I'll be researching this year, and probably be using well, I don't know, does GoHunt, I don't know, do you guys do barber sheep? Yeah, I'll be using GoHunt.
Yeah. So maps wise, we cover all 50 states. So you'd have all the map information that you would need. We don't cover, Texas is the hunt. So we don't have like filtering and all that for Texas yet. But yeah, I mean, maps, you'd have everything that you need to know to go and navigate it and figure it out.
Nice, man. Well, any cool, exciting hunts this year? I guess we don't know what tags we've drew
Mhm.
yet on a few states, but anything you got coming up?
Yeah, I'm waiting for Utah. So Utah said that they were supposed to have, done the draw, and they would get your results back by the 31st of May, which I guess they still got a few days to go. But I've been patiently waiting for Utah. This would be the first year I'm hoping that I'll have just a general season deer tag for my favorite unit. And I think probably 4 years. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm super excited about it because I think, like I said, it's going to be a really good year. But I hit pay dirt. Like I'm never lucky. Like I never draw tags ever. Like the random tags, I never draw those. I'm always burning points, like max points to draw a tag. And I drew a late season archery mule deer hunt and probably one of the best units in the state. I looked at my draw. This was my first choice. My draw odds to draw that were 0.65%.
Holy
So
cow.
yeah,
And what state was
less
it again?
than
You cut out a little bit.
in Nevada.
Nevada, mule deer late. What
Yep.
time of year is that? Is that like just November, December?
It's a November 10th through the 20th. Yep. So it's kind of a rut hunt with a bow.
Yeah.
I think there's only 9 total tags. I think there was only 2 non-resident tags. So, I mean, absolutely no pressure whatsoever, and just the opportunity to hunt rutting mule deer in a great unit in Nevada. So I'm as excited about this hunt as I've been in a long time. I mean, I'm jacked.
Yeah. And it's an archery hunt. I love archery mule deer hunting when there's no pressure like the pressure you're going to have. You're going
Mhm.
to have some pressure. 2 tags and you drew one of them. That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yep. So I've got that one. I've always got to have an elk hunt in my pocket. So I'll probably do, maybe just OTC in Colorado and come join the rest of you guys.
Yeah.
I've got some spots that I really like and we've had some success in. So I'll probably run out and do that. And I mean, I did apply for a unit in Colorado that I should have, 50 to 60, 70% odds. I've got a decent number of points there. So there's always the chance that comes back with a successful result in early June. So I'm waiting on that as well.
Yeah, it's almost here. We're not quite there yet.
Man,
results. Yeah.
I'm just waiting on pins and needles in several states. They just need to get some draw results coming back.
Yeah, that's very cool, man. Well, Trail, thanks so much for your time, man. I'm gonna end the podcast here. I know you got things to do. I'm sure I do too. But thanks so much for your time, you guys. And Trail, I really appreciate you being on my podcast. And this is a Western Obsessions TV podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Belding, and you're listening to Trail on one of the cooler podcasts I've done.
Thanks, Kurt, man. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Thanks, man.
This is the Western Obsessions TV podcast, where hunting's not a hobby, it's an obsession.